Hi, I'm Maria. I'm with Classic Home Creations. I'm a general contractor who has more than 20 years of experience. Whether you're a woman who wants to feel more empowered in this space, or you're someone looking to just increase your knowledge of construction, I'm here to teach you everything I know. Now, one of the very first videos I wanted to make is what tools should I have as a homeowner? What are the basics? Like, what do I need to get me by? I'm going to start with something very, very basic as far as pencils. This one is just a regular pencil, school pencil. Number two, this one is from Office Depot. This is a contractor's pencil. You can see mine is well used. It's about half gone already, from the big orange box store. This is sharpened with a utility knife. This is more for framing, big construction stuff. It fits in a tool belt pocket a little bit nicer, and it doesn't snap as easily as these do. So this pencil will work just fine, but it's always something you want to have on hand whenever you're about to do something. Speaking of utility knife, there are different kinds and types, but this is utility knife. You push and slide, brings the blade out, you push and slide back to retract it. This one is really nice because it has a little button right here that you push, and it has blade storage. They usually come with a couple extra blades, but you have here, this is a quick change knife, so you can depress this little yellow button, grab the top of the blade and slide it out. You can turn it around. If the one side's dull, you can see this one's kind of rusty and gross, but it still works. Anyway, keep that little button slid or depressed, slide the knife back in, and then you can usually, sometimes you got to wiggle it, make sure it's all the way fully seated in there, and then you can put it down. So that's a utility knife. I would always have one of those, but be careful. Blades are sharp, right? Go figure. Screwdrivers. There are several different kinds. There's many different kinds and different sizes within each of those kinds. You can get yourself a fancy little multi-tool like this one. It has a bunch of different heads. I like this one because it has a magnet that you can pull out. I have used this to fish jewelry out of sinks. I've used it to get screws that I've dropped behind various places. It's actually come in really handy. The nice thing about the multi-tip screwdrivers is the very end is a 1/4-inch socket driver. This works for things like the screws that screw on your dishwasher front. If you have a gas water heater, usually your cover for the water heater igniter is used with this. So it comes in handy for a lot of different things. You can just pull these out, store it, put in the next one. One thing I don't like that you can see in stores a lot are the big giant boxes that have like 30, 40, 50 different little attachments in them. You will probably never ever use more than 4 or 5. So unless they're on sale, I would skip it. But now we're going to talk about the different kinds of screwdrivers. I told you we're going to get started with the basics. So this one is another kind of multi-tool tip. It has a couple different options on it. But what it has is a number 1 Phillips and flat. Okay, so this is a flat-headed screwdriver, which means it's flat, right? This is a Phillips. Trying to get it to focus. This is a Phillips. This is the one that looks like an X. There's number 1, which is very small. Number 2, which is standard. That's going to be just about everything you're going to use is going to be a number 2. And then there is a number 3, which is even bigger. Probably nothing you're going to be using is going to be in that. So whether you have the multi-tool or you just have onesie twosies, I have one of each. You can see I just went to my garage and pulled these out of my garage toolbox. These are not necessarily the tools that I use when I'm on a job site, but these are the ones that I keep around my house just to have. They're covered in paint, but they're my handy, trusty number 2 flathead and a number 2 Phillips. The other thing that's really nice to have is a real hammer, okay? A real hammer. This is a framing hammer. This is a Stanley. It doesn't really matter what brand you have, but you're going to probably at some point want something that's a little bit better than the tiny little pink floral hammers that come in most women's tool sets. Don't get me started on those. Another really important thing, and there will be a whole nother video on how to actually read and use one of these, but a tape measure. Tape measures are very important. I know how women measure things. Oh, it's about this big. Oh, it's the size of my arm. No, don't do that. Please get yourself a real tape measure. So I have 3 different sizes of Stanleys. I like these ones. They're inexpensive. They work. They're accurate. So they come in different sizes. Usually the longer they are, the bigger they are. I like these little baby ones. This one will only go out to 12 feet. That's why it's 12. This one, 16 feet. This one's a 25 footer. Okay. But I like to have this little one, or there's even a smaller one of these I like to keep in my purse, my desk drawer, my junk drawer. A 16 footer is nice if you need to do things like measure room sizes or things like that that are going to be typically over that 12-foot mark. But if you're just wanting to measure something to hang a picture or get a height on curtains or something like that, a 12-footer will work just fine. Obviously, this is more like heavy-duty construction level, 25 feet, which if you have one, great. If you don't have one and you're looking to go buy one, don't feel like you need to get the big one. But please get something that's hard and not a soft tape. I don't know if I have a soft tape in here. Soft tape will work, they're accurate, but they don't go down to the 16th. So if you're looking for a video on how to actually read a tape measure and use one, I have one of those. The next thing you're probably going to want to have is a stud finder. This is very simple. You put it against your wall, you depress it, and then you can move it along your wall, and it will show you where your studs are. This one has a power button. So this will tell you if there's electrical, if it's sensing any electrical wires in your wall. So you know before you put a big screw through there to be careful. I will also have another video on how you actually use one of these and kind of the basics of framing, where studs typically are, how far apart they are, and all of that. That is a separate video, but you're going to want to get a stud finder. Also, my little baby level. This is my little baby level. This is the one that I keep in my house, in my junk drawer, for hanging pictures, doing things like that. So there's a vertical level. So if I can hold it right, the more tilted it gets, the more the bubble moves one way or the other. The goal is to get the bubble perfectly within these lines. These 2 lines should be perfectly centered. There's also a vertical measurement here. So you can see that depending on how plumb you are, right? So when something goes up and down this way, that's called plumb. When something goes this way, it's referred to level, which is terminology. It doesn't matter. You could use either one. They're going to understand what you're talking about. But if you want to be accurate, level, plumb. Now this obviously is a really super tiny one. I use it for hanging pictures. We have 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot. There's all sorts of different measurements of lengths of levels. Now, please hear me when I say this. There is no such thing as going to the store and buying bubble level water. That's not a real thing. I know so many people that love to pull pranks and send people to the store, into Lowe's or Home Depot, and ask them for the bubble level water. That's not a real thing. That just like turn signal fluid is not a real thing. Please do not fall for that. Also, while we're on the subject, there's no such thing as a board stretcher. I myself have personally initiated and teased people with that one. It doesn't exist. Now, those are some of the basic tools that I would recommend that you have. If you want to go a step further and you want to elaborate a little bit in your homeowner's toolbox here, I would recommend having Allen wrenches. Okay, there's metric and standard. Standard is fractional increments, right? So we've got all the way from as small as 5/64 all the way up to 1/4 inch in this little guy. So that's just referring to the size of the diameter of the Allen wrench, Allen key. They're all kind of called the same things. I like these ones because it keeps them all organized and in. The only kind of sucky thing is if you're using them in a really tight space, this can be kind of bulky, but you can remove this thing that kind of ties them together if you need to actually take them off. Metric is their smallest, and this particular one is 1.5, which is probably most similar to the 5/64. These are not interchangeable. Okay, a metric 1.5 is not going to be exactly the same as the standard 5/64. They are slightly different. A metric is kind of like an in-between size to the fractional standard sizes. These are just nice and handy to have in case you need them. You've got them and they're organized and you know what size they are. Another thing you could have, which is really handy if you're doing anything like plumbing, swapping out something like a faucet or something like that, these are really handy to have a crescent wrench. This, you just twist this and it gets smaller. You twist it the other way and it gets bigger. So you can adjust it to fit whatever size nut or whatever you're using to turn. So you put it around there, you tighten it till you get it, and then you've got enough leverage to tighten or loosen whatever that is. Most typically water supply lines, things like that. You don't need a super big one. These also have different sizes. This is an 8-inch handle. They get bigger, they get thicker, they get smaller, they get thinner. But I like this 8-inch one. Is just kind of a nice all-around size. It's not too big and bulky to get into tight spaces. But if you wanted a smaller or larger, go nuts. The other thing that can be really handy to have are just basic pliers, right? So this is 2 different types of pliers. They just, you open, you grab whatever you're going to grab, whether it's a nail or a nut on something or a bolt or, whatever, you can just grab it, tighten it. This one, you can, I'll do it backwards so you can actually see what I just did there. So this one, if you have it in its tightest setting here, that means it's going to touch all the way at this point. You can open it and slide it like that. See, now it's engaged and I've made my opening bigger. So now it's no longer going to touch here, but that just gives you the opportunity to have different sizes that you can use this tool for. Mine is obviously a little bit rusty and well-loved, so it doesn't slide quite as nice as a brand new one, but it still gets the job done. This is just basic plier. This is a needle nose plier, which most people are familiar with. It does have this little cutter. So if you had something that you needed to cut flush, like a tiny little nail or something like that, a little brad nail, you can just slide the head of that in here and snip. Or it's really good at reaching into really teeny tiny little spaces. All right, now the other type of plier that I would suggest you have is what I call a channel lock. Channel locks refers to a brand, but it's kind of like Kleenex refers to tissues, right? It's Kleenex. Channel locks. So this has an adjustment that you can go from touching tight here, kind of like the other one, but whereas the other one only had one, this one you can go very, very large. So you can get your wrench around a pipe. Now all the pliers, most of the pliers are going to have this, they're called teeth inside of here. These are help you grab whatever it is you're trying to get around and stay on it so you can twist and tighten. Now, if you're using any sort of pliers on anything that has a very delicate finish or something you don't want to be scratched, I would highly recommend just grabbing your shirt, a cloth, a dish rag, whatever it is you have, putting that inside first, and then grabbing whatever it is you're going to grab before you twist and turn, because those teeth will mar the surface. They are meant to grip and really get on there tight. So if you're doing something that you want to keep nice, it's always better to just err on the side of caution and just slip some sort of a cloth in between there to protect whatever it is you're trying to move. So those are the basics that I would suggest that you start with, whether you're a homeowner or a rental, or you just need to have something handy. Those are the tools that I would recommend that you have. Now you can put them in a toolbox, you can keep them in a Rubbermaid tote, you can keep them in a shoebox. You don't have to get fancy. There's a lot of different brands and toolboxes and a lot of marketing schemes, but really a cardboard box, shoebox will work just fine. You just want to keep them all together so that when you need tools, you have them. I also have available on my website a downloadable gift guide. So if you know somebody who's buying their first home, or you want to just set them up and equip them with the things that they need, I've got all the best basics for you that you can bring as a checklist to the store, whether that's Lowe's, Harbor Freight, Ace, Home Depot. Any and all of them are going to carry everything you need. As always, if you found this video helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.